and returned, I don't know what phrase to use, return to normal, I'm not sure, it's all different, right? And I'd like to say to you today that we have come through the pandemic successfully. We were one of those campuses, and it was not across the board in our country, that stayed open. With the exception of that awful March 2020, when we had to send those who could go elsewhere home, but never asked anybody to leave who could not, who did not have a place to stay. And that was such a high priority for us. We had about 135 students on campus through the spring semester of 2020, about another 70 or 80 students who stayed on campus with us in the summer of 2020. And as I said, it was an absolute priority for our campus that no student would be left without, would not have a shelter, roof over their heads, and food that they could eat, and a place where they could succeed as a student. And then after that, we opened up and we haven't stopped. The learning experience has been a little bit different every semester, from a strictly hybrid mix of hybrid and online, or hybrid and in person, to in this past year, almost always in person. And I'm very, very proud of our community for having made our way through that. As I said, there are a lot of colleges and universities that cannot say that. They went fully online, the students were not allowed back on campus, and we were able to accomplish something very, very different. So I thought I would say a word today about what we're talking about with our Board of Trustees. I want you to be inside the tent here in terms of the challenges we face and the opportunities that we have as a very strong campus community. So this period of time is, there are tectonic shifts happening in higher education. There is just no other way to say it. Are you good there?
Yeah, we're just.
Okay. All right, well, welcome to everybody who is coming in on Zoom. I'm sorry that I have my back to you, so I can't see who you are. So I'm going to look very quickly at who is joining us via Zoom.
Good attendance.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm glad you're here. So as I was just saying, tectonic shifts in higher education. And I strongly believe that Illinois College is more prepared than a lot of our counterparts to step into, to lean into the work of this next phase of life in higher education. And I had a town hall meeting with our faculty and staff this week, and you can imagine the sense of loss and concern when a college closes, like Lincoln College, and 2 years ago, the experience of McMurray College closing. And everyone rightly wants to know, how is Illinois College positioned for that future? And my message is, we are positioned very, very well to continue to make investments in our students, to make investments in our campus, to step into this world with confidence. And that's because over the last number of years, we have been taking steps to strengthen all kinds of effort and programs and activity on our campus, recognizing that we need to be adaptable, we need to be flexible, we need to be paying attention to what's happening in the market. We have to meet our students where they are. So just a reminder of things that I've talked with you about before. In these last years and pre-pandemic, we launched new curricular and co-curricular programs, including an honors program, an agribusiness program, health sciences program, criminal justice, kinesiology, and that's just the short list. We also launched, prior to the pandemic, IC Online, which is a focus on reaching another group of learners who do not have the opportunity or may simply need a different choice to be in a residential campus. We are reaching an adult learner market, and that's in place. And we now have several programs in the IC Online environment. We have introduced enrollment pipelines, and Stephanie Chipman can add to this conversation. The idea of an enrollment pipeline is that we can identify groups of prospective students because of an affinity group who may choose to come to Illinois College, who might not otherwise have come. So a couple of examples. Our IC drumline, led by Jacksonville native Tyler Carpenter. This is an amazing group. They will do the recessional at commencement on Sunday. We are finding students, attracting students who are coming here because they want to work with Tyler Carpenter. They want to be on the drum line. They would not have come otherwise. We have a competitive dance team. We have an esports team. And this summer, we are launching a new pipeline, which is a clay targets pipeline. We're going to have a clay targets program. And we know that this is going to reach a number of students who have an interest in that area. We've also been investing in athletics through additional coaches, through our facilities. When McMurray College closed, sadly, in March of 2020, we moved into the space of a clinical nursing program. It's something that Illinois College had been talking about for a long time. The previous spring, we launched an online RN to BSN program. So we were already positioned with accrediting agencies and such, and we're able to seamlessly begin a clinical nursing program. This summer, we're launching a Master of Science in Nursing program that's an online program. We've been aggressively pursuing grants that support student success, like our Title III grant that is focused on strengthening retention for all of our students. We were able to use very successfully the federal funding during the pandemic. We received over $6 million in funding that was used for all the things that the government asked us to consider. Half of that money went directly to students. Half of that money was used to invest in the technology we needed to be a hybrid campus. It was invested in personal protective equipment. It was invested in testing. We were part of the University of Illinois SHIELD testing program, which I am absolutely certain was one of the ways that we were able to stay open. Right? We were detecting illness when it was asymptomatic. We were under a rigorous testing protocol at points along the way for vaccinated and unvaccinated students alike. But that's over $1 million in testing for that purpose. We are $1.5 million away from reaching the $50 million goal in our campaign. And I can tell you that those investments in the campaign are going directly right now. We're expanding scholarships, we're expanding internships, faculty student research. We've invested directly in the physical footprint and capital improvements on our campus. So that's the foundation upon which we move into the next phase of our work. Now, one of the interesting elements of this coming out of the pandemic era is one that in all of your organizations or with people in your circles is what's happening in the labor market and the amazing shifts and changes that are occurring. They're occurring at Illinois College too, right? In this period of people stepping back, they're pausing, they're thinking about, is this the work I'm currently doing, work I want to continue to do? Am I going to shift my attention? Am I going to do the same kind of work, but I want to go to a different organization? Or I've learned during the pandemic that having a more flexible work environment is really essential. So we're learning all of that, and I will take any advice you have from your own experiences about how to support employees. Our goal now is to double down on our focus on being a college of choice, being an employer of choice, and being a partner of choice in the region. So as we look ahead and we think about the next era for Illinois College, and this is what the board focused on in our meeting last week, and that is, where do we focus our energies today, understanding this amazing kind of footprint that we put in place for Illinois College. How do we now focus on growth? You know, really those three, we come back to those: student success, strategic growth, sustainable foundations. They're all interconnected. But I want to say to you today that we are invested and focused on accelerating our growth in our online programs, expanding these enrollment pipelines, advancing that sense of belonging that students will have on campus in our DEI work through recruitment and retention. We need to leverage nursing as an area for both partnership and growth. I serve on the Jacksonville Memorial Hospital Board and the Memorial Health System Board in Springfield. I've just come out of a week of meetings there, and it is drilled into me the high demand for nurses and this opportunity for us and our program. We will expand our offerings in business and education and health sciences. We will continue to invest in our traditional liberal arts programs at Illinois College, and we're going to continue to improve our facilities to support the students who are here and will be with us in the future. So I end by telling you that we had an exciting groundbreaking for the second phase of the renovation of Kristen Hall on Friday. Unlike this gorgeous day, you may not know this if you weren't living in Jackson, if you're not living in Jacksonville, which I know many of you are not. It was cold and rainy and awful last Friday. I had a wool jacket on, and we had a groundbreaking inside. Why not? O'Shea Construction came to the rescue. They brought in a tarp with dirt, and we had shovels. And there's a great YouTube video that is a reel. Are we going to show that later?
No, but we can figure it out how
No,
to.
it's okay.
But I had an alum text me to say, scoot over to your right a little bit because they can't see you on Zoom.
Oh, perfect.
There you go. Yes.
So that's what I wanted to start today. And so if you have questions or comments, things that you're curious about that I can tackle, whether you are in the room or on Zoom, I'd be delighted to do that, Madam President.
Thank you.
I've got one.
Yes, Minette.
Dr. Farley, is there more of a push towards increasing teacher education training?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. One of the growth areas for us, and I didn't mention it, is education.
Okay.
The education department has moved into the Becker Center for Teacher Preparation, which is right next door to the Alumni House. And our numbers are growing. And what was so wonderful, as I've been talking to seniors who are graduating in education, many of them are staying in the region. You know, if they're from this region, they are working in this region, or they're going to their home communities and finding positions. And I think that's really terrific.
That's very good.
Yes, Rita.
Do you see many students, or were we able to help many that were at Lincoln College?
Yes. So Lincoln College is now officially closed. And I just want to tip my cap to our amazing admission team. You can know that our admission team is focused on best practices and is an incredibly adaptive group. Nobody knew that Lincoln was going to close until it hit the paper, right? And so we were all back on our heels, but our team in 24 hours, we had a website up. Our registrar's office had done a cross-check on the Lincoln curriculum, our curriculum, how we transfer. I mean, it was extraordinary. We have a web page. If you go to our web page, there's a banner that is inviting Lincoln College students. So that happened right away. And we've had lots of students on campus. We took part in a college fair that was held on the Lincoln College campus. We have been doing some really creative things to reach the students. I think when all is said and done, it's a little bit different than what we saw when McMurray closed. We welcomed about 100 transfer students from McMurray, which made sense, right? Because we were right down the street. I would say, Stephanie, if you agree with me, yeah, I think we'll be somewhere around 15 transfer students. But we will, and that's great. We're happy to welcome them and make sure that they have good experience at Illinois College. Any other questions? Anything that you'd like me to touch on? Thank you so much. I really, it's always so good to see all of you. I hope you have a wonderful meeting, and I'll see you tonight at the awards banquet.
Thanks,
Thank
Dr.
you, thank you.
Thank you, President Carney.
Yes.
Trying to catch us up on what's going on here at Kansas State.
You're very welcome. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Chloe was kind enough to email everyone the minutes. I hope you had a chance to read them. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? The only thing I saw on page 2, it says Stephanie discussed the formation of a legislative committee. The constitution for the Alumni Association it says updates, and I think it should be updated. Anybody else have any other corrections? I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected. Rita, thank you. Is there a second? Adam, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say sign. Minutes are approved as corrected. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Chloe. She's going to give our treasurer's report for Reg today.
Thank you, Marcia. Share my screen. All right, here is the treasurer's report. I hope everyone on Zoom can see that as well. So our additional expenses that we have spent since February when we last met. So we had our alumni survey, we had a second payment that due. And then we also had the postcard that went out for the survey. So we had our postage and design for that one that went out. And then that leaves us with $11,628. So that will be covered with the award ceremony tonight and then Osage Orange. And so we should hit our budget of $73,000 and coming in right on par. Are there any questions with the budget?
Being contrary.
No. Technical difficulties. Not going.
I can't see it well enough to help her.
Did you get that room button?
Oh, make you.
That's not it. They're very simple things. I don't know why.
Go all the way over to the left.
Oh, wait, here it is.
The white one's where you launch it from. It should be that middle one.
Is it the green one on this?
It's probably the
Oh, no,
other
that's the
screen.
person. I can switch over to the other screen to be resuming.
Oh, yeah, you are correct. All right.
There you are.
Thank you.
There you are.
Yeah,
I can't see
it's
it.
all brand when it looks.
It is.
Thank you, Chloe.
Screens.
I would entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report. Rita,
We approve the
is there a
treasurer's
second? Rita, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Treasurer's report is accepted. Now, I think this is an exciting part of the meeting. We're going to talk about the alumni attitudinal survey. Oh, yes, one, yes. Oh, okay, all right, well, we'll skip over him and we'll move on then. Hold tight on that. I'll turn it over to Robin, is that all right? Robin, will you
Sure.
tell us about Oliver I see?
Sure.
screen share.
Can you all on Zoom see what I have on my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, good, good.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. So we had an amazing day of giving again this year. Far more than we expected to have. Internally, we had a goal of getting 1,000 donors and we got that. So we were working feverishly till literally like 11:45 at night trying to get all this. But we were successful, so we're very excited. So for all of IC this year, we raised the total with matching gifts, $447,913, which is unbelievable. When we started this, it was just to see how it would go, but comparing to other schools, we fly by them. I mean, even big schools like Ohio State, big institutional schools, small institutional schools, we've been extremely successful with our day of giving, and that's what our donors really like. They like to see those results on day of giving. Unrestricted, we raised $428,743, and restricted was just at $19,000 with restricted or named scholarships, and again, a total of 1,005 donors. So as far as giving relation, we had 620 alumni make a gift, 127 parents, 233 individuals, which individuals include people who are friends of the college or alumni and employees, and it could even be people in the community. 88 employees that are just employees, and then 16 students. We had 13 companies, foundations, and organizations also make gifts too. From the day of last year, we had 361 people renew their gift. We had 166 new donors to our day of giving, 81 re-engaged donors with day of giving. So people who had given before prior day of givings, but not last year, but then they came back. And then 98 donors who have given to all 5 days of giving. So those are our most dedicated donors for this day. And then as far as total breakdown, we had 47 brand new donors to the college, 93 donors who came back to actually being a donor at IC, 228 donors that we had last year that we were able to retain, and 287 donors that had already made a gift this year, but they made a second gift because they believe in the power of education. And 51 people joined the Illinois College Society this day.
Nice.
So it was a big day. It was a lot of fun. These are some graphics that our marketing team made up to show kind of what we've, more of a visual of what we did on that day. The top 3 classes who gave that day was the class of 74 with 27 donors. The class of 73 was second with 23 donors. And the class of 66 was third with 16 donors. So if you're part of that class, give yourselves a round of applause. And then as far as the top class giving, the class of 66 was first with $83,000. The class of 67 was second with $28,133. And the members of the class of 1986 stamps were $27,233. So this was wonderful. I appreciate everybody who made a gift that day. We say it takes a campus here. It takes a board to help make this day what it is. Alumni board day of giving results. Total raise for the board this year was $108,566. So you helped raise a fourth of all of money that day. That's incredible. And total donors we had were 185,000. So again, the class of 86 comes in with bringing in the most money. Class of 67 was the second. And then the class of 1983 was third. So Dave, give yourself a hand. And then the top donors by class, 1980, you brought the most with 21 donors. 1991, you had 19 donors. And 1981, you had 16 donors. So Kevin, I don't know what you did to make that happen, but it's great. And so IC fund update as of today, we raised $842,164. We have a goal of reaching $1 million again this year. We did it last year. We know we can do it again this year. So tell your friends, tell your classmates. If you feel inclined, please make another gift to the IC fund at ic.edu/giving. We have our solicitations out for the end of the year, and we have 2 special solicitations going on right now. One is celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So we're asking for gifts for that. And then we also have a special segment we're doing of anyone who's gone on a breakaway or study abroad. So to help support that program, the students are finally traveling after 2 years of not being able to. So they're going on great trips like to Patagonia, Scandinavia, Spain. Where did they go over break?
Puerto Rico and to the, what do I want to say? Appalachia.
Yes.
They were in Appalachian Mountains.
So our students benefit from the IC fund because of donors, you know this. For breakaways, they also do too. And so, the more students that are able to travel and have those opportunities, the more worldly they come back. And then they just have a whole different way of thinking about things. So, check those out on our giving site. It's a really exciting time just to watch it happen. So, is there any questions about giving, or anybody want to step up with a big gift?
Hey, Robin, do you think this is going to have, at our last meeting, we talked about participation levels and how they've been dropping nationwide at every college and university in our country. Do you think this is going to have an impact on that, or is it still the major challenge that it's been?
We're seeing pretty good results as far as people renewing their giving again this year. And I think it's because we're getting kind of more in the, I don't know if it's the habit or back to normal. But when you've been running the report for retention, it's running up in par and just a little over.
Good,
Yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you. It's hard. I mean, you look, and a lot of colleges have giving percentages in the single digits. So for ours to be at, I think it's 14 right now. Do you remember 14? It's pretty good. It's higher than it was last year. So, again, it takes a whole board to do all this work, and I appreciate each and every one of you for reaching out and doing those videos and making that hard, making that hard ask of asking your friends and classmates to make a gift. It's not easy to do, and it's not comfortable, but I appreciate you doing all that. So, and then the videos are always fun to see too. But yeah, if you have any questions, please just always let me know. Chloe and I are always around to help with that. So, and Crispin, as I mentioned, doing renovations, and we're accepting gifts for that too. So it looks really, really neat. All the technology and everything that will be over there. So,
Robin,
yes.
this is Jeremy.
Hi.
I had a quick question. I got a couple text messages on the day of giving. I think in years past, you were able to do other and the drop down, and you could kind of designate your money in years past. And I don't think that option was available this year. Was there a reason behind that, or was that just trying to streamline operations?
I think we were kind of just trying to streamline all the operations going on, just to make sure that we had pretty much everything covered. It's something that we can always add next year.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Welcome. Thank you to our alumni office for this wonderful way of giving, and thank you to the board. I know it's not easy to do those videos. I don't like to do that either, but obviously they're being effective. So thank you, and thank you for your gifts, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. All right. Sure. I'm excited to tell you we're going to hear from Rob Shaws. He's the president and managing consultant of PEG Limited. And he's going to share with you a little bit about our alumni attitudinal survey, which I think is amazing because we just wrapped it up 2 weeks ago. So I think it's great that we're going to have some preliminary results. Is he with us? Rob. Okay, Rob, we're going to turn it over to you.
All right, great. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Let me share my screen here. double click on him.
Hopefully you can all see that.
Yep, we can.
Just a little bit of background. I didn't catch all the introduction, but a little bit of background. The company's been around for since the early
Share
90s.
on your computer, I would think.
What's that?
There we go.
got it.
I had a new screen.
Okay.
You're good, Rob, sorry.
Not a problem. We've worked with a lot of universities and colleges, over 350. What that means is it gives us the ability, and you'll see it's here to some degree, gives us the ability to not only look at what what the alumni said, but also lets us see how that fits contextually with an average alumna and a group of schools that are more like you. If you filled out the survey, and I hope you all did, you may have, it was designed, it was branded for Illinois College. It's really a conversation between the college and the alumni and the alumni, not a conversation between us and them. I think this is a real opportunity that you have. It's that one moment in time that the alumni of the college are asked not to help the college do anything or accomplish anything, but merely and simply saying, you know what, your opinion's important to me. And I think it's important as we move forward with this to share out the findings, to let the alumni know that what they said was heard. I think the trustees have already seen some of this information. I also want to point out, this is just a preliminary look. It's fresh, hot off. We just downloaded the data. We just closed the survey. So all we're going to share today is sort of high level look. In the final presentation that we'll share out in about a month, it'll also include a breakout of all the questions by era of graduation. And I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. But it's really how do young alumni feel different than older alumni? It'll also show a breakout by donor status, current, lapsed, and never donors. We always do that because you're always going to be oversampled with current donors. And then just recently, the college decided they wanted to also see a split by distance from campus. And so that will be included as well. So that next study, and that's where really a lot of the insights are going to come when we start understanding how those cohorts think differently. What are the distinctions between them, and how can you then develop strategies, tactics that help engage those groups based on their specific needs. The all school average that'll be in today's presentation are these colleges and universities, obviously not 350. And as you look at the list, there are a lot of these schools that aren't at all like you, some that are, but it does let us see what an average alumnus or alumna thinks. But in that next presentation, the one after we've done the analysis, you'll also have a comparison to a group of schools that are more like you. So out of all the schools that we've worked with, the staff are going to pick a set of schools that look more like you. If you filled out the survey, you may have remembered that there were questions about your student experience and your alumna experience and your overall sense of the college. And that was for you as a respondent. But in actuality, as we designed the questionnaire with the staff, we really looked at affinity and giving, messaging, where those messages are consumed, and programming. So as I share this back out to you today, you'll see that's how, so I'm going to bounce around. I'm not going to go question 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go with sort of the way the questions were designed in terms of the categories that they're in. And in that final presentation, we'll have a word cloud. There are some open-ended questions. You'll have word clouds of those, plus those responses will be provided in their entirety. So you had just under 6,000 people that we sent it to. We had just under 1,000 respond, a 12% response rate, which is actually higher than we normally see. Our typical averages today run 3 to 8. Some schools will do as high as 20 or 25%. But a 12% response rate's good, although that's not the most important number on this sheet. The more important number is 722. What we want to have is a large enough population that looks like the overall population and then gives us some comfort statistically that what we're looking at is representative of the entire alumni body. That, to put it in context, Gallup or Quinnipiac, Fox, MSNBC, they'll do a national poll of 150 million registered voters and claim correctly so from a statistical standpoint that they know plus or minus 3% what those 150 million people think was somewhere between 1,000, sometimes 1,500 people that they actually polled, which is an immeasurably small percent of 150 million. But what it does is it gives you your number of responses is sufficiently large that it lessens the probability that outliers can overstate their case. So I think we're comfortable. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the broader study. We're also not as concerned. You might say, well, what about the people? It was mostly an email study. What about the people that don't have emails? Mightn't they be different? What about the people who didn't respond? Are they different than the respondents? And the good news is we've been at this now for 20 years, bunch of schools, done over 800 projects. During that time, a lot of those schools have tested both of those hypotheses, sent out a paper survey or done phone surveys to check into those populations. And every time we've done that, we find on these questions, the same issues will percolate to the top. And it makes sense, right? The tendency of an alumnus or alumna to say, I think skills training for career is really important. And I want to know how the school's better at that today for the students than it even was when I was there. That's not going to change whether or not they've decided to give you their email or whether or not they decided to fill out a survey. It's probably, that's not the connecting point. It might be very different if they're 25 versus 55. And in that ultimate analysis, we'll look and see how those things have variance. But we're pretty comfortable that those biases, called selection bias or response bias, are not really embedded in what we're looking at here. So you're in pretty good shape. Just a little stat, who filled it out? We had about 12% or close. This will be the split that we'll also include in the broader study. Overwhelmingly Caucasian, white, more so than the average school that we work at, and a pretty even split between men and women. We're going to have a split against current lapse, never. The rule of thumb in internal statistics is if you have 30 or less in an internal cohort, you're really just talking to people. It's pretty much completely anecdotal. And you gain confidence that what you're looking at is representative of that population in a pretty steep slope till you hit about 1,200, 1,500, depending on the answering pattern, the standard deviation around that question. So at 250, 230, we're going to have pretty good look at what these internals look like. 75, it might get a little noisy, but it's enough definitely to look at. So we'll get a sense of how the nevers answered this question different than the current and lapse, and we'll get a pretty good look at the current and lapse. The other thing that you always want to look at is sort of how young people are different than old. And the way we do that, as opposed to generational, we started generational in the early 2000s, found pretty early on that didn't really work for alumni in their relationship with their alma mater, because I bring my generational characteristics to my collegiate experience. But once I'm there, I'm really heavily influenced by some things. One would be the strength of the affinity. It's where I transitioned into adulthood. And it's also always going to be part of me. It's by all likelihood the most expensive thing I'll ever buy in time and money that I can never, ever sell back to somebody. When anybody asks me where I went to school, it's always Illinois College. So I have this kind of affinity, this connection to it. And it's always going to be intertwined in the political and economic environment that exists when you're there. If I can't get a job because the economy's bad when I walk off campus, I probably feel differently that it's easy to get a job. And universities, colleges are always sponges and echo chambers of political discourse. So we're going to look at it through these eras. I won't go into it a lot, but if I'll just give you one example, we'll get a lot more deep into this as we do the broader presentation. But if you say, just look at the Gen Xers, it's really different. They're not all the same. If I walked off your campus between 94 and 2000, that's 94 being when the .com IPOs really took off. If I could even say the word internet, people hired me. If I could get on the internet and get funded, I figure I'm rich and retired by the time I'm 30. I'll never work for anybody older than me. We're spending the peace dividend. The Berlin Wall came down in the late 80s. There's never going to be war again. Only one superpower. Really heady time for the early Gen Xers, and all that changed in 2000, 2001. Still Gen Xers, but in that time frame, if I walked off campus here, I probably had a conversation with somebody going to or coming from a theater of war, and it's really hard to get a job because the .com bubble burst in 2000. Even the millennials, right? That financial collapse of 08 made it almost impossible to get a job. By the latter part of the Obama administration, the economy was taken off and continued to do so right up until this pandemic, but always tempered by this weird political polarization. We have not defined the coronavirus as an era yet because we don't know what the political and economic consequences of it are, but we do know it has changed everything. So for purposes of your study, we will break out that from this economic prosperity political polarization. Unfortunately, our N is really low. It's below that 30, but we figure it's still probably worth looking at because it's such a unique time and there may be similarities, so we'll see. And your N's are a little bit less across here, but again, all above 30, so it'll give us some insight as to how these groups were different. And you're pretty similar in your distribution, the yellow being that all school. In the distribution of responses, you have to combine these two blues into this. Fairly consistent. You have a few more of your older alumni filled out the survey than did as a percent relationship of that all school average. One of the questions I thought I would start with, because I think, this is the only question in here, I think, that I actually did some parsing of the data just because I thought you might find it interesting. This is the question that we ask in the survey about your intent to financially participate with the college. And the scale went from I never have and I'm never gonna, to I have in the past, but I'm done. My kid got kicked out, I ran out of money, something happened, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I never have, but yeah, I think that's something I might do. I currently am, and I'm gonna continue, and I currently am and increase. And you are oversampled, as we saw on the earlier slides. You had a lot of currents, filled it out. So you're gonna have a little bit oversampling of that, and we're not surprised there. But what makes this question interesting is another question I'm going to show you in a minute that says, how often do you promote the school to others? And the options were never, occasionally, regularly, or all the time. And this is how that distributed within each choice category. So there's a higher density of people that say never to occasionally promote on the left side of this chart, and a higher density of folks that said regularly or all the time promote on the right, which we expect to see. That's not what makes it interesting. What makes it interesting is you have 15% and 17%. You have a fair number, almost 20% of the folks that answered these two in the bottom regularly or all the time, even though they're not planning to do that. And if you take it all the way out to occasionally, it's over 70% here of the folks who said never and don't ever want to. Over 70% of them said I'm at least occasionally promoting the college, and over 80% of the folks that says but I'm done. Why that's important, why I wanted to share that with this group is now, and we'll look at that closer when we get into the broader, is that you're the people. You all are the ones that are slated with standing in that gap of working with all those alumni and trying to find the things that might interest them in the college and cause them to do the things that alumni do to help make the school better. They're more likely to recommend people go to the college. They're more likely to hire your graduates. They're more likely to volunteer, provide real life circumstance into curriculum, and do other things that are important to the college. And obviously, they're the ones most likely to provide much needed financial support. So I just thought I would share that, especially with this group, and we'll talk about that more. We ask high level questions. Your folks, this is decision to attend. you look pretty much like an average school. Most people are going to say it was an excellent decision to attend their alma mater, as with you, almost 70% say excellent. Problem with these questions is if you were a lot higher than everybody else, you'd feel good about it. If you were a lot lower, you'd feel bad about it. But in either case, you don't really know what to do about it. So we take these questions and collapse them into an index. And in the broader study, we'll look at how other questions that you can do things about, how those things have cohesiveness or correlation to that kind of affinity. So this is decision to attend. Experience as a student, you all are happier about your student experience than the average school out there, but a little less likely to say you promote all the time. Remember, in this yellow bar, that's got all those SEC schools, all those Power 5 schools. They get to do a lot of promoting on Saturdays when they're all watching it on TV, in March when they're watching basketball. So that's influencing that to some degree. One of the things that'll be interesting here is to see how that breaks out across the younger versus older alumni. Overall current opinion, you're pretty similar to what most universities and colleges around the country think, as are you with your experience as an alumnus or an alumna. And like I said, we collapse those into an index, and your index is right on average of what we see, but we think it boxes in the compass. Decision to attend, bringing a historic perspective, willingness to promote an active perspective, experience as an alumnus, a current perspective, and overall current opinion and aggregate perspective. So more on that to come when we do the broader analysis. We also asked on connectedness. I think this is interesting. 53% gave you 7 on higher on connectedness, but 74% said 7 or higher, they're likely to recommend the college to others. So I think that's also speaks to an opportunity that you all have as a board, as you're thinking about ways to help the staff think about how to get alumni more connected, more feeling like they're part of their alma mater, because they're definitely out there recommending it to others. We ask them where their loyalty lies, and it tends to be to the college in general, to their major, a faculty member, a student organization. What's going to be interesting here, again, are those age distinctions. What we'll often see is this student organization and faculty member is really a lot stronger for your younger alumni. So it really means, as you're thinking about how do I get those really elusive young alumni to become involved, if that's true for you when we parse it out, then it's going to say maybe introduce, maybe do things that connect them back into that student organization, maybe bring more faculty into young alumni related activities. With respect, and I apologize in advance, a really busy slide, but I'll kind of walk you through it. We ask them, how much does stuff impact your opinion? And at the top 2 for you all, the top 3 are availability of college, value and respect for a degree, and history and tradition. Followed by accomplishments. The way I like to read those is just look at the blue first. Okay. Those are the folks that said critical impact. And then I'm going to show you a slide in a minute that looks at the combination of the light blue and dark blue, which is critical to significant impact. But you have 40% or so that are saying these top 3 are critical impact on their opinion, and 30% accomplishments of students and a diverse and inclusive environment. Although a diverse and inclusive environment kind of has more on both sides. So you got a fair number of people, over 30, that say that has either no or just a little impact, and yet 33% has critical impact. So it's kind of bifurcated, and we're going to try to understand where that is. It's probably age-based, but we'll see if as we look at that when we start parsing out the data. If you look at the combination of those two, and here we can compare it to the all school, you can see that value and respect for degree, which is one of your top 2, is by far the top for most universities and colleges. And it makes sense. we as alumni of whatever institution we went to, we look at that thing that we have as equity, as something that we have. And we want to know how that equity is more valuable today for us than it was when we walked off campus, and how valuable it is going to be based on what the college is doing, right? So we want to know how that equity is increasing in value to us. The difference between equity of degree and stock, another kind of equity, is that stock's measured by cash, right? And I know immediately, is my stock more valuable today than it was last week? Equity of degree, each one of you might well define that differently. So one of the things that we'll try to ferret out for you, and you can see it here to some degree, is what are the things that lie underneath that equity proposition? And for you all, it's scholarships, history and tradition, accomplishment, students, aesthetics, and then diverse and inclusive environment is going to be interesting because you had a lot of people said that was critically impactful, even though if you look at critical to significant impact, it kind of lessens a little. So your definition of that individualized kind of idea of value will be something we'll want to drill down into and try to help you understand. We also asked them how well their experience prepared them for their lifetime well-being. And here you can see that you're as prepared, if not more prepared than the average school. You're kind of consistent with what most alumni think. What's interesting about this is odds are almost all the schools we work with, and we'll see, I could tell you something different in a month. Odds are these questions are going to be the things of everything you ask. They'll be in that top tier of things that have a high correlation to affinity. So we as alumni tend to believe or credit our alma mater with a lot of the things that exist in our lifetime well-being. And it turns out the more that we believe that to be true, the more likely we are to have affinity, and the less we believe that to be true, the less likely we are to have affinity and want to be connected and all those things. So, and it's also often true that it's kind of a learning curve. Older, you kind of figure it out over time, but either way, you want to always, if that's true for you, then you want to look for ways to increase the learning curve, help people figure that out sooner. So tell stories. Any of you, just already, I could, if that's true, I would tell all of you when you're talking to other alumni, one of the things you want to talk about is, I didn't always know it, but really when what XYZ happened while I was at the college, it's really foundational to who I am today in my love of education, in the career I've had, in my commitment to my community, and whatever those things are. The more that alumni understand that to be true, the more likely they are to have a higher, if that correlation holds true for you. We also ask them how important was stuff to their student experience, academics, classes, relationship with other students, skills training for career, and relationship with faculty were way at the top. We also ask them how well the school did at those. And you can see academics and classes, relationship with students, relationship with faculty are the three they think that you did best at, and traditions or values learned on campus. So that's interesting, but what's that matter to you all as an alumni board? Well, what we like to do on these questions is look at the difference between those two. And that's where the energy is. So these are the ones that alumni said, well, that's more important. And if you remember in the survey, they were side by side. That's more important to me than I think I got. So I have energy on that. I want to know how that's maybe improved. And here are ones that you kind of exceeded my expectations. So on these ones in black, our argument is, if you said skills training for career was pretty darn important and I wish I'd had more of it, what you're saying, if that equity of degree is true, that you say value and respect for degree is important, and that's always defined in its current value, which is the student experience, then you're probably telling us that you want to know how that's better today, more better, different today than it was back in the day. So we always chart those this way. And you can see then in a chart like this, it kind of pops off the chart. Skills training for career is what you have told us as alumni, that skills training for career, you want to know how that's better today than it even was when you were there, followed by academics classes, relationship with other students, and then to some degree, relationship with faculty. And again, this is in descending order of how important you thought it was. We also asked them how often you do stuff, and you tend to read the magazine, email, get in touch with each other. It'll be interesting. Class reunions is a little higher than the average. I'll be interested to see how that differentiates across age. With respect to communication, we asked the Goldilocks question. Do you get too much, not enough, or just the right amount of information? Most of you said it's about right. But a lot of you said, I want more invitations to stuff. I may not come to your events, but I want to be invited anyway. It matters to me to know that those events happen. It's more than just and that leads to a discussion of maybe it's more, the value of that event is more than just the number of heads that walked in the door. It's also about vibrancy, your alumni knowing that those things are happening, because clearly almost 40% of them say, I want more. I want not nearly enough, or I want more. The same with social media, although we'll see how that breaks out by age. You also down here, I highlighted both of these because you might, solicitations for donations, you're saying, well, gee, that's high. We've got almost 40% say way too much or a little too much. That's dead on average of what we see for most schools. So you're not really in trouble there. I highlighted this other one, and it probably should have been highlighted over here too, is that you have room to send more communications. If you're worried about, do we send too much communications, all the complaints are email communications, all the complaints are coming out of that little purple bar, with 20% saying I want more. And it's really more print material. They want more social media stuff. They want more invitations. They don't necessarily want more of these solicitations, but you're not high on that. So you've got room probably even there. And you can see you're pretty consistent with what the other schools said. We ask them, again, importance on communications, how important are various communications, and how do you kind of rate how we are on those? The magazine is by far the most important and by far the thing they think you do best. Interestingly, you're succeeding expectations on everything. So that's good. You think all these communications, the performance is exceeding importance, as with most schools, that's true. However, with most schools, when you get into invitations, you're going to see that this bar is over here because your older alumni are really happy. It's very possible your younger alumni are the ones saying, I want more invitations. I want more social media. So we're going to parse that out and try to understand where that's coming from. With respect to programmings, again, another importance performance. The things that are most important to them in the programs you do are identifying job opportunities, promoting the school, being ambassadors, recruiting students, and providing financial support. They think you do a pretty good job at asking for money and recruiting students and serving as ambassadors. So those are the ones that show up there. But you got some pretty good sized gaps here. Identifying job opportunities, serving as ambassadors, mentoring students, those are your big three. So does that mean all of a sudden, if you start doing a bunch of mentoring programs, everybody's going to sign up? No, it does not. It means that's what they checked on a survey. But what it does mean is they have an interest in that. So whatever you're doing in these areas where the bar goes to the left, get noisier. And we'll help you identify where to get noisier in the broader study. We also ask them, what did they do as a student? And residence halls, residence halls, literary society, intramurals, those were the ones that really percolated up to the top. Why do we ask this? We ask it because we know that if you want to get young alumni involved, the best way to do that is if a student sees an alumnus alumna on campus doing something and says, when I get out of here, I want to be like her, or I want to be like him, then they're more likely to then try to get involved once they leave campus. So that begs the question, well, where are the best place for alumni and the association to show up on campus? And I would say those are your big three: the Literary Society, APO, Greek letterhead, intramurals, and then maybe the residence halls. And then also on these 30%, you might look at opportunities there. We'll talk about that more as well. And why don't they come to your events? Predominantly, they say they don't have time or they live too far away. My suspicion is that geographic distance is going to be a bigger deal the further they get away from campus, but we'll understand that better when we get there. And then we also, what best describes their legacy status. I'm not planning to include Illinois College in my estate plan. You got a little over half saying that. But interestingly, you have almost 20% that I'm currently thinking about including or I already have. And another 25% that said, well, I currently don't, but it's something I might consider in the future. And we want to understand again how that breaks out by age. So that's a high level overview. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Again, this is just a taste. In about a month, we're going to have a much more in-depth look at this, a much more nuanced sort of understanding, I think, of how you all as an association can integrate these kind of results into your strategic and tactical thinking as you're finding ways to help support the university and the staff at the university. So any questions, thoughts? Yeah, David?
I'll just speak up. Yeah, hey, I thought it was a really good first shot at looking at the data. I was really impressed with your presentation. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. We're gonna have a lot more fun with this next time. Trust me. Once we got ability to think cohorts, that's where this stuff starts to really pop. I know you all are busy, a lot going on this weekend, as I understand it. So I'm happy to continue taking. There's a lot of kind of stuff here. If you think of something afterwards, or you have any questions, just talk to Chloe, Stephanie, anybody. Let me know. I'm always here, happy to take those questions. But I really would kind of hold my fire until we get to where it gets really interesting, when we're thinking about how's it different for those different cohorts?
You know, Robert, one of the things, I'm just thinking here out loud to everybody, but one of the things, you know, it's a great question. It's kind of get this conversation started, but how do we get all this into a strategy that we can really implement and come up with you know, a plan going forward? I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I know your staff is as well. That's why they did this. They did this because the idea here is, how do you take, because this information, as interesting as it might be, is only interesting. Its only value is to the extent you can share it you can integrate it into strategic and tactical thinking. But the other thing that it has value for, and I'd own this as an action plan, David, already. You can't do it yet, but start thinking about it, is the more that you share this out. So the trustees have seen it. They're excited about what alumni are thinking. They're excited that 12% of alumni filled out the survey, even though it was pretty long. And I suspect we're going to share it with other folks on campus. But the more that you can let the alumni know that their opinion matters, that people care about what they have to say, that in and of itself is important. I know you do a lot of events. When was the last time you did a virtual event with over 700 people in attendance? You just did one. You just did an event. You had 700 people show up at the event. So it's a big deal. And the more that you can communicate that to alumni, the more that they are going to feel like they have a voice. And if I have a voice, then I'm more likely to want to get involved.
I think it's also, this is Nanette Best, I think it's also important that they not only want to get involved, but they feel appreciated. And unfortunately, sometimes we need that little pat on the back to feed our ego a little bit, to know that, hey, you know, you helped with this, or you contributed to that, or, hey, we saw you out there, thanks a lot. And I think this survey is going to help lend to some of that, to make sure we let our alumni know that we do appreciate them, no matter what role or what, you know, they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. The more that they understand that. And the other thing is, it's sort of like Dale Carnegie 101, Tony Robbins 101, right? If you want to be in relationship with somebody, what they always start all their self-help books with, interpersonal skills, is ask people their opinion. But when you ask them, look them in the eye, make them believe, or at least pretend that you're listening. But how do you prove you're listening?
Right.
You got to rephrase it and give it back. Hey, we heard what you said. And even better, if 6 months down the road, kind of following what you're saying, David, if you bump back into that person. So I asked somebody their opinion. They told me, I said, hey, wait a minute, that's really interesting. Let me make sure I understood what you said. And then I see him 6 months down the road and I say, hey, remember that conversation we had? I just want you to know that mattered so much to me. I'm actually behaving differently. It's actually influenced how I do things. So again, thank you for letting me, for sharing your opinion with me. And in a large sense, that's the opportunity you have here with your alumni. Good. Any other questions or thoughts? Or again, it's just a taste. So I think to me, it looks pretty good. It looks like I think your alumni are definitely open to being more engaged than they are. And then the question is trying to find the mechanisms that allow that to come to fruition.
Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate it very much. It's exciting to have these results in 2 weeks' time, and we can't wait to hear more. So thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all so much, and have a great time while there. I know there's commencement, I guess, and stuff going on. So have a lot of fun, enjoy yourselves. And I look forward to seeing you again when we've got the full report.
Great. Thank you, Rob. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is a discussion about the ballot. Turn it over to Chloe.
Yes, so we, if you all could send your 2 names who you would recommend to be on the ballot by May 31st, that'd be very much so appreciated. We're gonna start the ballot this summer. We will need it completed by August 31st, like everything votes in, our winners told, because we like to let them know about a month before the October meeting. With homecoming is early this year, it is September 30th will be our meeting, so we'll need to have, you know, get all that information in. So marketing has time to design it, to go to press, to mail out, to give alumni enough time to vote. So we'll have the online and mail-in options available like we have all in the past couple of years. So that's our next big project that we need to get rolling on. Are there any questions about the ballot?
So Chloe, you want a name, phone
Yes.
number, email address?
Just 2 names is fine, and then I can look them up in our system. That's totally fine.
You want some background info on them too,
Yeah,
if
if
you
you
know
want to
Chloe?
provide, yes, that'd be nice. And I sent the link in my email to you guys, I think the other day, that had the link that you can also nominate on as well, and you can send that out to your peers too to nominate. That's on our website. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chloe. Next on the agenda is old business. As I read the minutes, I did not see any old business. Did anybody else have anything to bring up? Right, and we'll entertain new business. First and foremost, we are saying goodbye to 5 retiring members of this board. We have 2 present today. I'll ask you to stand when I read your name. I'll read everyone's name to thank you for your service. Melanie Berg is on Zoom. Jeff Boss, is Jeff on?
Yes.
Yes.
It was.
Brenda, would you please stand? Jeremy Lynn's on Zoom, and Rachel. And we will have certificates for you. We appreciate your service. Thank you very much. Very appreciate it. Other new business to come before the board.
Yeah, I'd like to bring up one thing, especially in line with the survey results that we've seen. You know, I know it's still very, very early, but one thing that came to my mind is our alums want more events. And, you know, I've been fortunate enough to participate in a golf event the last, I think, 3 years that they've had it. A week or so ago, we got a listing of upcoming events that wasn't on there. I'd start promoting that because you may be able to pick up a few more teams. I always enjoy the event because I love to play golf, but I see a lot of people that I see one time a year now, and that's at that event. I also appreciate when I see folks come. It's always good seeing Chloe and Robin. I've seen them out there several times. President Farley's been out there on occasion. Some of the guys I play with, they aren't as involved as I am, so it's great they get to interact with those folks. Another event I would like for the college to consider, one thing that's listed on the calendar is the State Fair Day in Springfield. Well, there's a second state fair. It's in DuQuoin. It's not DuQuoin, it's DuQuoin. Is it as large as the Springfield State Fair? No. Is it a pretty good sized event? Yes. Also, the good thing about DuQuoin, we have a number of alums in Southern Illinois, or also known as God's country, but you're only a half hour, 45 minutes away from the Metro East. And when I was up here for the gala last week, when Teresa and I are walking back to the car, I'm walking out with a gentleman who's on the board of trustees. I'd never met him before. Very nice gentleman. He's an attorney, and I can't remember his name because I'm getting old. But he lives in Belleville. You know, Belleville to DuQuoin, easily a 45-minute drive. You know, I know that the time is running low. The DuQuoin State Fair, it always begins the weekend before Labor Day holiday. But, you know, and are you going to have 200 people or 300 people show up the first year you have it? No. But, you know, we have some people on the board that could probably help you pull some pretty good strings to get something like this going, even if you did decide to try to do something this year. I, for one, will make a commitment that if you do try to do something this year, I know you would want to promote it with postcards or something. But if I'm given a list of alums in God's country, I have no problem sitting out on the front porch, drinking beer and making phone calls.
Well, and Jeremy said this is the 100th anniversary of the DuQuoin State Fair.
Oh.
I would stay away from Labor Day weekend because Monday is actually a very big Labor Day and you don't want to try to conflict with that. The Saturday and Sunday right before Labor Day are total zoos out there. But that first weekend, it's usually quite quiet and it doesn't smell like a fairground that first weekend.
That's part of the
ambiance. I did an Illinois State Fair in Springfield that last year and really enjoyed it. It was just very, very nice evening. So thank you. I think that's a great idea. It's going to pull people from St. Louis area, people that aren't going to drive to Springfield.
Well, another thing you also want to remember is there's a lot of folks when they finish at Illinois College, right before the meeting started, Robin and I were talking about, in my class, there were 6 people that came to SIU Law School in the same year. You're 20 minutes away. So you have folks going to SIU Law School. You also have folks going to grad school down there. Some of them would probably make that 20-minute drive.
That's a good point. I think we'll see if we can make that happen. If not this year, for sure next year.
And Jeremy may know a thing or two about that.
Okay, very good.
Just to follow up one thing on that is, why do we not have the golf outing in Jacksonville? I mean, we have 3 golf courses here and it's right, the campus is here.
I think it's because who started it.
I was saying who originally started,
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
I bet that's what it has to
I
do
think
with.
so.
Yeah, and I can't, where is it? I can't. even-
The rail at
Rail.
Springfield.
I think whoever kind of originated it, that was their territory and that's just where they knew the people to get it arranged with, but nothing wrong with looking into.
I think it's a fair question.
My question is, does the college actually ramrod that, so to speak? Are they in charge of it, or is it somebody else that's sending out the invites?
No, it's the college.
Okay.
Athletics spearheads it, but now it's more of an institutional event.
Okay.
So they're starting to send out emails and postcards to invite people to attend, and there's usually a pretty good attendance.
My husband didn't know, but I just didn't know how it started or originated.
Erin?
If Southern Illinois is known as God's country, I guess that makes Chicago the Devil's Playhouse.
Hey, you said it. I disagree.
But along with the results of the survey and our younger alumni wanting more events, I know there's a lot of young alumni up there, and
Yes.
I live there and I'm right in Wrigleyville. I'd be happy to help coordinate like a bar crawl or something with like a ball game. Yeah, I'd be really happy to help engage those alumni up there.
I think that's a great idea, Erin. I think that would pull a different crowd than we're gonna have in Central Illinois. So thank you for offering to do that. That'd be nice. I think people are ready to get back together. Just ready to socialize and visit and see each other, and it's been a long 2 years, so we're ready.
And kind of along those lines too, I think people are ready to get back together, and I think more, like, I know they're more challenging and you have to find a host, but regional alumni events haven't happened for a while. And I think that would get people started, and then they'd be excited to see people that they live close by, and then they'd start branching out from there. But I know I've lived in the Peoria area for 15, 16 years now, and I think there's been 2 alumni events, and there's a lot of alumni in the area. So I think all of those places would be good to start kind of having little get-togethers that would then go into bigger get-togethers.
Used to have those.
Yeah.
Kind of like regional reconnection.
Regional
Yes.
reconnect, exactly, and the president would speak, or someone. Vice President.
It'd be fun if we could get people to volunteer to get 2 or 3 or 4 or more going, and then publicize them as a big group in the quarterly before they would happen, you know, so that, I don't know, I just think that make it pop a little better that, oh, look what's going on in the state or wherever, you know.
Because they used to have them in Texas.
Right, we had them all over Arizona.
Arizona, where there was usually an alum willing to be the host for it. But I'm hearing people are willing to step up.
Okay,
I can have people to my bean field, but I really don't have, I don't have the facilities.
But I think if you like kind of broke Illinois up into geographical
Yes.
regions, there would be somebody, or at least know a location, and you could
Right.
even start with the alumni board and say, you know, how close or where do you think a good spot would be to draw people from, and
At
then
this
kind of go
point,
from
maybe
there.
think Southern Illinois and Northern Illinois, and Springfield hit the.
Yeah.
Middle.
And
I think that's
if I could just
okay.
mention, Dave Ringhausen hosted an event in November, so thank you so much, Dave.
He's smiling. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, I do have a comment, if you don't mind, a couple of things. I've been thinking, what would be a good way for the alumni to try to welcome that new class graduating into the alumni fold, so to speak. And I was just brainstorming, thinking, what could we possibly do as an alumni board for those graduates, and just to say, hey, welcome to an alumni, right? And I was thinking, and I'm just gonna throw this out here. This is a crazy idea here. Some people may think, but if going into their senior year, they're going to be looking for jobs, and if they had a business card at Illinois College, a logo on it per se, and just says their major and this is their phone number, contact information, that when they do interviews or they go to job fairs, that obviously they're going to hand them their resume, but also maybe they give them their business cards. And business cards are dang cheap, and it would be a very relatively low investment if we would buy each senior a set of cards, maybe 50 to 100, and say, hey, looking forward to seeing you on the other side. Good luck. Hope you find a job, kind of thing. Anyway, throw that out there. If anybody else has any comments on that, I'd love to hear their feedback. If that sounds like a crazy idea or not, if that's something we could raise money to do.
I don't think it's crazy. I just know a lot of the students my son, for instance, had a job before he even became a senior. I mean,
Yeah.
he was
That's
already, I mean, he didn't have the job, but when they found out he was going into physical therapy, he had people seeking him out.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's just food for thought.
And another thought too, because I know my daughter's been doing a lot of interviewing of some people that she's trying to hire, and a lot of her interviews are not in person. She's interviewing people.
Yeah.
Yeah, virtually. So I don't know, they're not gonna be able to hand you that business card.
Yeah. I wondered about that with the way things are now. I mean, do the kids even write a letter, a follow-up card? Hey, thank you very much. Send in the mail, or is it more, hey, an email? Thank you very much. I just wonder how that all goes.
They ghost you. They ghost you. My kids did thank yous for their wedding, and instead of writing the old fashioned thank you note, they sent everyone a photograph that said, thank you so much for attending our wedding and for your gift. You know, generic thank you, but kind of a little something from them for everybody to have after the wedding. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's just different traditions now, different ways of looking.
Yeah, I understand
at
that.
all this.
You should have told me that 3 years ago.
That's funny because my daughter just got a phenomenal one the other day, and it was a video this girl sent, and it was very into marketing.
So I just had a question. Do we have like Alumni College alumni groups on LinkedIn at all?
There's one group.
Do we have one?
There's one
Group of what? I couldn't hear.
On
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So there's an institutional Illinois College LinkedIn page that has been there a long time. There's a new initiative that's about 9 months old to really engage it. And then we have seen a lot more people following it and a lot more content on it in the last 9 months. To my knowledge, there is no official Illinois College, what I'm going to call splinter for individual groups or majors. Not that we couldn't, I just don't know that there has been an expressed interest. But it may make some sense by, I don't know, sector, field, rather than major, if people want to stay connected that way. I think there's some possibilities there.
Yeah, I just think about that. Like, so you mentioned the business cards. Whenever I taught business comm here, I made my students create LinkedIn profiles and add people and talk to people that way as a way to connect. And like if I go present at the comm classes, I tell the students right away, add me, message me via LinkedIn, since I don't have a card, you know, anymore. And I'm in a couple of groups. Like I think Illinois State has one for alumni where people post jobs. And if you're an alum looking for a job, you can join the group and you can kind of, I think it was Illinois State, one of the two, that you can kind of join the group and see who's hiring in your college network, you know, and it's helpful for something.
Rachel, the other thing we do is we give every senior a headshot.
Oh, nice.
So they, during their senior year, they come and a photographer takes that and we encourage them and help them set up a LinkedIn account with that professional headshot.
Could you hear that, David?
Yep.
That kind of goes along with your suggestions, so.
Yeah, the whole suggestion was more important that somehow alumni are just reaching out to those seniors saying, hey, you know, good luck. Looking forward to having you as an alumni, that kind of thing. Whether maybe it's just a postcard that we say that, or just give a gift or something. That's the main thing I was trying to stress. So think about it. We got plenty of time. We can't do it this year, obviously. Maybe something in the future.
We do get a gift of a license plate holder that says Illinois College on it. Yes.
I actually bought a license plate holder the last time I was here.
That's a great idea. I love that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And in fact, I was selling my car in the front of my neighborhood, old school, and one of my neighbors said, I went to Illinois College. I think it's a really
That's a great idea. I love it.
That's a great talk.
That was the point of the story, just kind of at the end. But maybe back to what David said and a little bit of the survey. I think what's kind of interesting, if you think about the labor market right now, is these students, you all, the college is preparing. You have something that's incredibly valuable, which is like really high quality, you know, potential workers. And, you know, I've hired something like 40 people over the last year, kind of 9 months, and we've got more people to hire. And in fact, it's a little different than maybe it will be a few years from now. Certainly it was when I finished school. That like I don't know that we should try to connect kind of alum to students. It's more student to alum. You have this, you're serving up, I don't know, 250 people every year. And you can take these people, I don't want to call them commodities, that seems wrong, but it's close to that, and into the workforce. And if the alum that are not so connected to the college knew that every 3 months or every 2 months, there was this virtual job fair, and that, because they know the kids coming out of Illinois College are prepared as well as you can be prepared for the workforce. They know that. And you'd say, come join our virtual interviews. Yeah, the kids are they're gonna get jobs no matter what. All 250 people already have jobs lined up in today's work environment. And so you can actually connect I think there's an ability to connect tighter to the alum by giving them kind of first access to the students, maybe even in like October, November for graduating in May. Because I don't know if it's the LinkedIn connection. I think I joined the group, but as we started looking we've got a few entry-level jobs. I'm going through every Illinois College alum and they're just showing up on my LinkedIn feed. Hey, connecting them to our HR people. Hey, I know these folks will come out and they'll be really good out of the gate. I don't even know what their specialty is, but they'll be really good. And I think we've got a collection of business leaders, certainly in this room, that are hiring a ton of people. And I would love to find like the 250 kids that are graduating this year. Kind of in May, it's too late now, but maybe there's some in December, and I'd love to talk to them right now and get them job offers. And I would really value that. My company would really value that as an alum.
Hey, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, thanks, Dave. I was just going to build on that. Obviously working for the state, we don't have a ton of opportunity to bring people in off the street, but I have had IC interns every year that we've had them. I guess we lost 1 year for COVID, but what I will say, as we talk about DuPont, as we talk about the state fair, those, how often do we include, when they're done outside of the school calendar, are we including students of the college to meet them where they are? I mean, are they provided those opportunities to mingle with us alumni when we're doing things in those summer months when they're not on campus, if we're able to have those events outside? That's networking. That's really where those opportunities exist, and we meet them where they are. Just my thought.
All right, I got another idea. So we do a postcard, all alumni board signs it, we give them a decal to put on their car. How about that?
That's been done, I think.
We say, have a great year, see you on the other side. Hey, I got a quick question. Who's our, do we, when we have an alumni event, do we have somebody from the school who's our, I call social media person that kind of watching what's going on and then maybe grabs video or pictures that we could post either on LinkedIn or on our webpage or in a tweet or something like that? Do we, rather than, just tweeting it ourselves, do we have anybody that's looking for those opportunities to do that? And the reason I say that, I just feel like we have such a great homecoming event with the alumni tent, and the school's done it so well. And I'm looking out over the crowd and I see somebody holding court over here and another person's having court over here. And then they have I saw where they had the alumni folks who are having their alumni parties come together and taking pictures. And I'm like, God, I just wish everybody could see what's going on, because there's so much here and so much going on. I wish the rest of folks who couldn't attend this could see this. And I don't know if there's any way the school's capturing that and trying to use that on social media. I throw that out there as a question. I'm more or less to the alumni folks who work for the school.
Absolutely. So we have a social media person in the Office of Marketing who collaborates with various departments, including development and alumni relations, to get those stories out there. So I think, there's always a lot of homecoming photos. If you were on Friday, they did a little the video that the president mentioned about the groundbreaking, is a little 30-second bit on some different things. So I think there's a lot of potential there. I think there's a lot of great stories to tell from what's going on campus.
Yeah,
It's not her job to look for job offerings or like, if we hear some things about alumni, we'll push them back out. So for example, the Triopia superintendent just recently won an award. We've been talking about ways to get, some of those specific stories that we hear from the outside, out to alumni in general. But we do a lot of that with the class notes and the quarterly website more than social media. But I think, we do a lot, there's always room to do more.
yeah.
If you don't see the way the algorithms are written, if you're not seeing that on your feed, I recommend that you go like search for Illinois College, find some posts and comment and like, and that will kick it into your feed more frequently.
I got you. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It is a good way to stay connected.
It is.
Can you guys hear me?
A little.
I was just wondering, we have a lot of great ideas, but we're pretty short-staffed right now with Taylor and Chris leaving. What's the plan for hiring new people in the alumni office?
Thank you. Yes, we have several open positions, as I mentioned in the email. Right now, the Director of Alumni Relations is posted, and I believe the Executive Director either is or should be in the next few hours available for posting an application. So we're working to fill those really outward facing positions. We have a couple of more internal positions that we'll post once we get those filled. I'll be honest, I am not in a real rush to fill some positions ahead of the executive director. I'd like that person to be able to be part of building his or her own team. And so we'll kind of roll those out as we're able to fill them.
Other questions or discussion? If you haven't been on campus for a while, do walk across to the center quad because the legacy bricks are absolutely beautiful. And if you haven't been there, just take some time and look at those names, and it's beautiful. Anything else? You can see the important dates listed. I don't need to read those to you. Tomorrow's USA George. The commencement is on Sunday. That's exciting. See about something at the Decoy Fair, maybe something at Wrigleyville. I think one.
I might drive over there.
So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Nice.
Thank you, Nanette. Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. And your thoughts, your contribution.
If you've not seen the bricks.
Bye, everyone.
No, I took all the, yeah.
I knew that you
I don't know if there's a way to
Yeah.
connect. I don't like prolonged.
Everyone
It's more of a logistic thing, but if you go on there. And then you click.
I think so.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in a, yeah, that's like a 60 guys.
Oh, in the website, not on LinkedIn.
Well, yeah, 'cause